Are you actually awake right now? I don't mean, are your eyes open? Are you breathing? Are you scrolling? I mean something deeper. Are you aware of yourself in this moment? Or are you just happening? Because according to the spiritual teacher Was Gurdjieff, most people, nearly everyone, go through life in a kind of waking sleep. We think we're awake because we move, talk, think, react. But Gurdjieff would say, all of that is mechanical. It's automatic, it's programmed, and none of it is truly conscious. You laugh, not because you chose to, but because something triggered it. You get angry, not out of decision, but out of habit. You're pulled by desires, by fears, by dopamine hits, and you call it freedom. But what if you're more like a sleepwalker wearing a mask? In this episode, we're going to explore why Gurdjieff believed you're asleep, how to see the machinery running your life, and most importantly, how to start waking up. And I'll warn you, once you see it, you can't unsee it. Let's begin. So who was this man who dared to say that almost the entire human race is asleep? George Ivanovich Gurdjieff was born around 1866, though like much of his life, even that detail is cloaked in mystery. Part mystic, part philosopher, part provocateur, he spent decades traveling through Central Asia, the Middle East and North Africa, seeking out hidden esoteric schools and ancient spiritual teachings. But Gurdjieff wasn't your typical guru. He didn't preach peace, or love, or enlightenment as some vague, floaty state. He spoke of work, intense, uncomfortable, inner work. He told people the truth they didn't want to hear. You are a machine. You live your life asleep, and unless you struggle against this sleep, you will die never having truly lived. His teachings eventually became what's now called the Fourth Way, a method of spiritual development that doesn't retreat into a monastery or cave, but takes place right in the middle of everyday life. In traffic, at the office, in your relationships, anywhere you forget yourself, which is almost everywhere. One of his closest students, P.D. Ouspensky, captured Gurdjieff's ideas in the now classic book In Search of the Miraculous, calling him the most extraordinary man he'd ever met. And whether you see Gurdjieff as a genius, a charlatan, or something in between, one thing is certain. He held up a mirror to humanity, and what he saw and what he made others see was not flattering. But it was real, because for Gurdjieff, truth, not comfort, was the starting point of awakening. Gurdjieff's most unsettling and most liberating idea was this: you are a machine. Now, he didn't mean that you're made of metal and wires. He meant that you behave in a mechanical way, repeating the same thoughts, feelings, reactions, and patterns over and over again, without real awareness or control. Think about it. How often do you choose your emotional state? How often do you respond with full presence rather than react on autopilot? For Gurdjieff, this mechanical life wasn't just a bad habit. It was the default condition of the human being. We identify with our thoughts, our feelings, our roles, as if they're us. But we don't see that we're being run by them. He said, man lives in sleep and he dies in sleep without ever waking up. In his view, nearly all of our so-called decisions are just stimulus response chains. Someone insults you, you get angry. A desire arises, you chase it. You don't decide these things. They just happen. Like a machine responding to buttons being pressed. Even our beliefs, preferences, political opinions, most of them are borrowed, absorbed unconsciously from parents, culture, media. And yet we defend them as if we authored them. That's the scary part. The comforting illusion is that we are conscious beings in control. But the reality, according to Gurdjieff, is that we're sleepwalking through life, imagining ourselves to be awake. He described people as being made up of multiple eyes, shifting personalities, voices in the head that take over in different situations. One eye wants to wake up early. Another eye wants to stay in bed. Another eye promises to quit drinking. Another eye opens the bottle. We say I as if there's one self, but in truth we are a chaotic swarm, driven by inner conflict. And unless we begin to observe these mechanical patterns, we will never know who or what we truly are. If you're still with me, you might be thinking, okay, maybe I have habits, maybe I get triggered, but I'm still conscious. I'm aware of what's happening. But here's the disturbing twist in Gurdjieff's teaching. You only think you're conscious. He believed most people spend their entire lives in what he called waking sleep. You're up, moving around, working, thinking, but you're not aware of yourself in any real, sustained way. You're more like a dreamer who doesn't realize they're dreaming. To explain this, Gurdjieff laid out 4 states of consciousness: sleep, literal sleep, dreams, unconscious rest. Waking sleep, what we call normal waking life, alert but not aware. Self-consciousness, the rare state where you are aware of yourself being aware. Objective consciousness, full presence, perception of reality without distortion. According to Gurdjieff, nearly everyone lives between the first 2 states, and most never experience the last 2 at all. Think about how often you zone out while driving, eating, scrolling or talking. Your body is there, your voice may be speaking, but you are not fully present. Self-consciousness in his system is not about being shy or socially awkward. It's the moment you can observe your thoughts, emotions and actions while they're happening, with a part of you remaining steady and aware, like a witness. We live in the illusion of consciousness because we confuse thought with awareness and reaction with intention. And this illusion is dangerous, because if you believe you're already awake, you won't see the need to wake up. For Gurdjieff, the first real step toward transformation is not reaching some higher state. It's realizing how deeply asleep you already are. And once you see that, the question becomes, can you learn to remember yourself before it's too late? So if we're asleep, if we're just reacting, dreaming our way through life, then how do we wake up? For Gurdjieff, the answer wasn't belief or morality or even meditation in the traditional sense. The key was a practice he called self-remembering. Now, what does that mean? At first glance, it sounds strange. Remember myself? Don't I already know who I am? But Gurdjieff would say you don't. You're constantly forgetting yourself, not your name or your past, but your actual presence in this moment. Self-remembering means that as you act, you also know that you're acting. As you speak, you also know I am speaking. As you walk, you simultaneously observe I am walking, not from your head, from a deeper place, a part of you that watches without judging, without getting pulled into the story. Imagine washing the dishes. Normally your body is there, but your mind is off somewhere else, thinking, remembering, daydreaming. In self-remembering, you bring yourself back. You wash the dishes, and you're aware that you are here now, washing. It's a split attention. One part goes outward, doing the task. One part stays inward, remembering the presence of I, and it's incredibly difficult to sustain. Gurdjieff warned that the moment you think, "I'm doing it," you've probably already slipped back into identification. The ego loves to sneak in and take credit for awareness, turning it into performance. But when you do catch even a moment of true self-remembering, it feels different, more vivid, more alive, like stepping out of fog into sharp daylight. And this, Gurdjieff said, is the beginning of real consciousness. Not imagination, not belief, but direct, lived experience. It's not glamorous, it's not mystical fireworks, but it's the most radical act you can commit in a mechanical world, to be present to yourself right now. If awakening is so important, if it's the key to escaping the mechanical life, why doesn't it just happen on its own? Because waking up is unnatural. That's what Gurdjieff taught. The system we live in, both externally and internally, is designed to keep us asleep. He said that left to its own devices, life moves in predictable patterns governed by laws, momentum, and habit. Inertia pulls us back into sleep again and again. So to wake up, we need something he called a shock. But not just any shock, not trauma or chaos. Gurdjieff spoke of conscious shocks, intentional disruptions to our automatic behavior that create just enough friction to spark awareness. Imagine this: you're lost in thought, reacting on autopilot, then suddenly you remember yourself. You observe your behavior. That gap, that interruption, is a shock. And in that gap, freedom becomes possible. Without these shocks, Gurdjieff said, we stay locked in what he called the law of octaves, where every process begins with momentum, but then loses energy and veers off course. You've seen this. New Year's resolutions, spiritual highs, motivation bursts, they all fade. Why? No shock, no intervention. That's why conscious work is needed. Deliberate discomfort, practices that force us to notice instead of drift. It might be a moment of silence in a loud day, a brutally honest question, a raw emotion fully felt, or simply sitting still and observing your thoughts without chasing them. The point is, awakening won't happen by accident. It has to be disturbed into existence, like shaking someone out of a dream. And until you become the one creating those shocks, life will keep doing it for you, usually the hard way. If awakening is so powerful and even glimpses of it feel so alive, why don't we stay awake? Because, as Gurdjieff saw it, we resist it with everything we've got. On the surface, we say we want freedom, clarity, and truth. But underneath, something in us clings to the safety of the known, the predictable, mechanical self. Awakening threatens that. It dismantles the identity we've spent years, maybe decades, constructing. One of the biggest obstacles Gurdjieff pointed to is the false personality, the mask we wear, made of borrowed beliefs, emotional reactions, and social conditioning. It feels like me, but it's not. It's a performance, stitched together from other people's expectations and our own fear of not existing. Then there are buffers, inner shock absorbers that prevent us from seeing contradictions in ourselves. They let us lie, judge, avoid, and pretend without noticing the tension it creates. Buffers keep the illusion stable, and they protect us from transformation. And let's not forget identification, the tendency to merge completely with whatever thought, emotion, or situation we're in. Instead of observing our anger, we are the anger. Instead of noticing fear, we become it. Why do we do this? Because unconsciousness is comfortable. It's easy. It doesn't require responsibility. You don't have to question yourself. Just react, just blame, just go along. But here's the truth. The part of you that resists waking up is the very part that needs to die for real consciousness to emerge. And that's terrifying. Gurdjieff wasn't offering comfort, he was offering conflict, the internal friction necessary to break the spell of sleep. Because only by facing what resists can we begin to know what's real. So how do we actually apply Gurdjieff's teachings today, in a world of smartphones, deadlines, and constant noise? The good news is, you don't need to escape to a monastery. Gurdjieff's method, the fourth way, was designed for people living in the modern world. People with jobs, families, relationships, stress. The path isn't separate from life. Life is the path. The first and most essential practice is still self-remembering, those brief intentional moments of presence in the middle of your daily routine. Start small. When you walk into a room, pause and silently witness, I am here. While eating, stay present with the taste, the motion, and your own attention. Notice the shift when you suddenly come back to yourself. Next, cultivate self-observation without judgment. Watch how you speak, how you react, how you pretend. Don't try to change it, just see it. You're mapping the machine. And with awareness, the grip of sleep begins to weaken. Another powerful tool, intentional friction. Take cold showers, delay gratification, fast, break habits. Gurdjieff wasn't into comfort. He believed you wake up by going against the current of your automatic tendencies, not to punish yourself, but to develop inner strength, will, and clarity. Most importantly, find allies. Gurdjieff insisted that awakening is nearly impossible alone. We need mirrors, people who challenge us, who reflect our blind spots. In his time, these were schools and groups. Today, it might mean conscious communities, coaches, or accountability partners who are also committed to inner work. And finally, be patient. This work isn't glamorous. It's not a dopamine spike or a spiritual high. It's slow, repetitive, often frustrating. But over time, something shifts. The dream thins, the presence deepens, and what once felt like you begins to dissolve into something more real. This is the work, and the work begins right here, where you are. By now you've heard the message. You're not fully awake, not in the way Gurdjieff meant, and deep down you know it's true. But the real question isn't, am I asleep? It's this: are you willing to wake up? Because this path isn't just about feeling good or collecting insights. It's about seeing through the lies you've told yourself, letting go of the identities you've clung to, facing the inner noise you've spent years avoiding. Awakening costs something. It costs comfort. It costs certainty. It costs your favorite illusions. But what you get in return is your life, unfiltered, unedited, real. You begin to see, to choose, to be. So here's the challenge. Just for today, catch yourself once. In a moment of reaction, of drift, of identification, pause and remember yourself. Say silently, I am here. That's where it begins, not with answers, but with awareness. Because as Gurdjieff said, the greatest danger for man is not that he will lose his soul, but that he will never wake up to the fact that he has one. Now, what will you do with that? If something in you stirred, don't let it fade. Pause, observe, remember yourself. And if you're ready to go deeper, subscribe.